I am getting pointed at that tells me that we are live. I'll believe it when I see someone saying something in chat. If you can hear me, say hello, and we will consider this thing started. I see my face on the stream, so hey, there's Zitty. Someone saying hello. Hey, everybody, welcome to Expedition Rome's third dev stream. This is dev stream number 3. I am joined yet again by my wonderful, fantastic friend Jonas. Hi, Jonas.
Hello, hello. I forgot
How you
that I could
doing?
talk there for a second. Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah, it takes a minute sometimes to realize that you're on camera, but
Yeah.
welcome. How have you been? How are things treating you?
Extremely busy. Life of a game dev, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's been exciting as always, so that's good. And the weather's amazing in Copenhagen right now, so that helps lift the mood, obviously.
Yeah, it's that. I think you guys have told me before, and the few times I've come out there and visited, like you only have a little bit of time in the summer where it's actually fun to be outside in that area versus just being dark and cold for long periods of time.
It's all about recalibrating your own threshold for what constitutes warm. As long as you have a fairly high threshold, then it's fine. I think we have like 1 week of what you would consider proper summer weather at best, but it reached like 30-ish degrees the other day, Celsius, obviously. So that was nice.
Right. Man, it's something that I even I know we do weekly calls, sometimes more than weekly calls with the team, and it's flabbergasting to me sometimes the differences between like during the summertime when it's just daylight all the time when you guys are in the office or in your home cameras, and then like you hit like September and it gets dark at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then you get to December and January and it feels like it's getting dark at like 1 or something like that. It's like it gets dark so early. It's just freaky.
Fortunately, we're not quite north enough that it gets dark at 1 ever. But yeah, you can get to where it's like pretty dark at 3 p.m. But then in the summer, like it never gets dark basically. Like there's still a little bit of sun peeking over the horizon at midnight basically, and that's really nice.
I've always wanted to go to a place that's daylight the whole day and night or dark the whole day and night. There's that Robin Williams movie. I think it was it Robert De Niro? I can't. There was a movie where like this dude was a crime fighter. I want to say he was like a detective in Alaska, and he had to like and he was like, it was an insomniac because he couldn't sleep because it was daylight the whole time. So he had like blackout curtains but couldn't sleep. And there's that scene where he's walking out of the bar at like 2 a.m. and it's still bright out. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I saw that movie when I was younger. And I'm like, man, this is fascinating. I want to check this out. Now we're distracted talking about daylight cycles. That's the beginning of our stream.
Yeah, it's like the mark of an imaginative mind to talk about the weather, right?
Yeah. Well, so what? I think daylight's different than weather though, because daylight's a unique thing. I think that's super interesting. Yeah. Well, I know we have a lot to go over today, so we can jump right into it. Today we're talking about story and character and all those fun things that make up the kind of guts of Expeditions Rome.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of game development. So I've been really looking forward to the stream.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned it a few times, even on Discord. You were pimping it up a little bit, talking about how you can't wait to chat about the story piece. So I know we're going to bring Fasih on a little bit later too, and he's our narrative designer. He's going to jump in, and it should be a fun stream for everybody.
I do believe so, yeah.
So let's go in and talk. If you haven't checked out, we have our Dev Diary number 3. Where everyone talks about where Jonas and team go through aspects of the story and our storytelling mechanisms. I encourage you to read it. It's over at community.expeditionsseries.com. It's our community website. It's where all of our dev diaries get posted. There's some cool exclusive screenshot images on there, as well as some, the dev diary itself. And in the dev diary, you kind of broke up our storytelling, our story focuses into 3 main pillars. And if I remember, the pillars are I have a cheat sheet so I can remember because the paper tells me. The pillars were authentic historical setting, deep and compelling characters, and with their own personalities and agenda, which is important, 3-dimensional characters, and choices and consequences. So we're going to go into all 3 of these topics in detail, and I think it's really great to start. We talked about it quite a bit, but I think it's good to start with kind of the historical setting. So what is for new people here, what is the historical backdrop for Expeditions Rome?
Expeditions Rome is set in the very end of the Roman Republic. So the Roman Republic spanned like 5-6 centuries, and I may have, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And our game takes place in the last century of those. So right around the time of Julius Caesar, who most people will be familiar with, obviously. And there's a great cast of characters that are very well documented in that period. It's a time where the Republic was sort of teetering on the brink of becoming an empire. Like it had already planted the seeds of empire, and it was really just a matter of time before somebody stepped in and exploited that. There were some severe divisions in the Senate that were really causing a lot of political strife and discord, and just ripe for exploitation. And that makes it a really interesting period to deal with. It's also a period where Rome was really had already been expanding its reach a lot, but this was where it really started to grow as a continent-spanning superpower as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very compelling time. There's so many, not just historical documentation written around that critical time in history, but you have so many fantastical examples of what happened during that transition that have been used in fiction and science fiction and fantasy. I mean, it's such a compelling moment in history with this transition from Rome being this republic to being this empire. And I think it's one of the reasons why I picked this time frame. It's just there's so much to work with in what was going on then.
Yeah, it has been really nice to work with a period that was so well documented historically, because Romans actually wrote, whereas the previous setting we were working with, like Expeditions Viking, those guys were like chiseling things into rock, right? It's kind of limited how much you can document. Like you're normally just gonna go, I was here and my dad was cool or something. That's about what you had space for. So it's been great to actually have proper historical materials to use, like with a real well-documented cast of characters where you don't have to guess about whether these people were ever real or were just legendary or myths, or like 3 different people actually somehow conflated into one by some Christian monk who got things mixed up. These guys actually wrote to themselves, and so you have first-hand accounts from that time, which of course you still have to, when Julius Caesar writes about himself, you got to take that with a pinch of salt. But
right, because no one likes to pontificate about their own accomplishments, right?
No, sure. Surely he's modest and everything he wrote is perfectly correct.
Especially the Romans, right? Like they definitely didn't beat their own chest about their own accomplishments, the consuls and senators and whatnot, and talk themselves up.
No, definitely not.
I love the example. I'm sure there's some Viking fans out in chat. I love the idea of you guys having to look at chiseled stone that just says "I am here" as your reference point for the Viking historical documentation. It's almost like the cave paintings, right?
It actually happened. Like we went to the National History Museum and like looked at rune stones, and some of those rune stones just say like, so and so is a terrible person and must be cursed forever by the gods or something like that. They were just so angry about someone, you curse him on a rock. But to touch on the
I know exactly what you're talking. I think the Romans did something like this too. Like there's a Roman bathhouse in Bath, UK in England, that I went to back on a trip once, and they had this entire wall that was dedicated to people writing curses to each other. And that's exactly what I cursed so and so because he stole my sheep, and they would just like chisel that into the wall, and I completely forgot. Oh my gosh, yes, so that was part of the research you were doing for Vikings, basically the curse wall. That's amazing.
Some of those things are universal to the human experience. Sometimes you just gotta curse a man on a wall. I mean, that's what being human is. Oh, to talk to your second.
Is that not just Twitter now, right? Isn't Twitter the new curse wall? It's like our new.
That's true, yeah, but it doesn't stick around as long, so it's not as fun.
Yeah. By the way, something. Now we're talking about historical. We have a new hashtag we're planning to use on the Expeditions Rome Twitter feed called Just Rome Things. Jonas and team have been gathering a whole bunch of historical nuggets that they have gotten from their research. So if you're a big Rome history fan, you may want to follow us on Twitter. And we're going to start posting some of those things. We love if other people have their own facts, and maybe some of them are in the game, maybe not. You never know. So that could be a lot of fun. That's hilarious. I completely forgot about the cursing wall. That's great. So moving on to a little more details, I actually found like you're 100% right about the just how much documentation there is, and I actually am a personal fan. I mean, I've read a little bit of. I wouldn't say I'm a Rome history fanatic, but I have the Rise and Fall books, and I've read bits and pieces of those over the years. I got those as a Christmas present once a long time ago, and I was really happy about that. But I became a big fan. Actually, I think you introduced me to the YouTube channel. It's Historia Civilis, I think. And that's a really compelling channel. I know that you guys mentioned you watched it a lot when you were kind of diving into the personality of some of these people because of just how well they talk about that.
Yeah, I went through his entire backlog of videos. He's far from the only research we've done, obviously, but it's a very entertaining way of getting an intro to the whole sort of. I mean, he likes to focus in on specific eras, and he does have a lot of videos about Caesar and that time period. So it's been perfect to have him and his videos as reference material. He's also
Ultra Dark a link. If maybe someone if one of the moderators can go grab it, it's the Historia Civilis channel on YouTube. It's a really, really awesome channel. I know I personally watched a number of them, but there was there was the ones on Cicero and Cato who are actually in our game, and so I found it really. I actually played them in the game first before I watched the videos, and I'm like, wow, the way that we portray them is actually surprisingly very close to, I guess, the drama they pulled and the things that were going on between them. It was really interesting.
In a way, that's a problem with working with this time period because everything is so dramatic and so larger than life. Also, when you read the actual history, that people might think we're just making shit up, and that it seems unbelievable. And then you start reading about it and you realize that pretty much all of the things that happen in Expeditions Rome are totally plausible. Even the things that didn't quite happen are similar to other things that did happen or that definitely could have happened based on what was going on at the time. It's a beautiful period to work with, but yeah, I mean, it can easily end up seeming like total fiction.
Yeah, I think Ziddy and Home, our community guys, are on this channel, so if they should have the ability to post a link, MetaChow. So when they can get the link from YouTube, they can post it. It's a great channel. The one actually I liked the most was the one on the consoles, because I thought that was very interesting to see the power the consoles had. I mean, and this is something that's come up a lot in the Expeditions Rome community, because they've been talking about, you have the ability to play a female hero in this game if you want to, or you can play a male, and if you play a female hero, the world reacts to you very differently. And there's been those comments about, well, there was no real, there's no known female generals or legionary or whatever in the Roman army. But when you look at what consuls could do, it's not really outside the realm of possibility. If a consul really wanted to do something like that, they could have pulled it off. I mean, consuls, when they had certain tiers of power, were pretty much gods. They could do whatever they wanted during their reign, and some of them really even expanded that further than even, I think, the Senate and the Republic expected them to do. So, I mean, it's a very compelling idea of a consul just saying, this is someone that I trust, and I'm going to elevate them as their patron, and then away it goes.
Yeah, that is part of what we do to make it a little more plausible that you might become a legate as a woman, because it didn't happen, obviously, and you should absolutely feel free to just play a man if you don't like the idea of the historicity of it, but we do try to make it seem like something that could have happened, and part of that is that you have this very, very powerful patron who is an imperator currently engaged in war, and in that capacity, he can pretty much do whatever he wants, and nobody can stop him. So he likes you, and he can put you in charge, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, and some of them definitely did do whatever they wanted. Caesar particularly did quite a few of whatever he wants during his.
Oh yes, he pulled some real shenanigans.
Yeah, by the way, I really encourage you guys, and maybe we can actually. I've never reached out to the guys over at Historia Civilis. Maybe we can get one of them to join us on a stream once and talk about, because I mean, some of the stuff that was done, like just ignoring the guy yelling his objections in the audience because he said he couldn't hear him, even though there was probably only like 100 people there, and it's obvious. I mean, it's just amazing. So the drama there, it's people don't change that much. The drama is the same, just the mechanisms that are used are different.
Well, sometimes, like the filibuster, for example, features in our game. That was something they had in Rome, and now it's a thing in American politics. So yeah, some things just repeat.
Yeah, it's very true. History always repeats itself. So in essence, I mean, you can probably tell from just the excitement level and even like some of the details we're talking to, like the team has really tried to bring to life this historical setting. It's a core part of our story experience. We wanted to have that vibrance, and I personally think it really comes through. It's a lot of it's fun to see those characters come to life. And I challenge you to look at and I even offer feedback once you have a chance to play the game between like what your interpretation of the characters are and what our interpretation of the characters are. I think it'll be a lot of fun to see those historical characters come to life.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to talk about and think about. And as we mentioned in the dev diary as well, to us, history is a canvas that we can paint on. It's not necessarily like we don't want to be restrained by the specific events, especially since it's a role-playing game and you have to actually act in that story and have real agency in there. And if you just had to beat by beat experience history, that wouldn't be much of a possibility space for you to really make any interesting decisions.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our second pillar. And I hear some people, by the way, Fasih, I can see him. You guys can't. He is coming. He's going to be on here. You have a fan, Fasih, already. Ultra Dara is very excited about you being here. He's shrugging in excitement, but he will be here, I promise. He's talking about Pillar 3. It should be good. So for Pillar 2, we're going to dive into the second thing we talk about in the Dev Diary, which is about our characters. And we have a lot of characters. We have, our antagonists. We have the NPCs you run into. But I think for the sake of kind of zooming in a little bit, we have our 5 kind of, well, I always thought it was 4, but I guess it is really 5. The 5 companion characters that are kind of the core cast that surrounds you during this story. I mean, these characters are with you from, I mean, not all from the very beginning, but I mean, they journey through the entire game with you pretty much.
Yes, and the reason you didn't know that it was 5 was because originally we only had 4, but then I crammed in a 5th one just because I wanted to. So she wasn't there from the beginning. She was one of the characters that we had originally set aside, Deianira, the Amazon warrior. And she was one of my favorite character concepts, and I really wanted to include her, so we made it happen. Yeah, do you want me to just explain who they are?
Yeah, if you look behind Jonas, he has the cast sitting there, but only 4 are there. So poor Deianira didn't make that cut. That's okay. She's still a lot of fun. So actually, I'd love to do a thing with chat here. So Jonas is going to go through and give like a really quick highlight of each of the 4 characters. We don't have forever on the stream, but we do have some audio clips from the game that we can play from a couple of the characters. So if you guys, as we're talking about them, if you become really excited about one of them, just start, I wouldn't say spamming it in chat, but vote for who you want us to talk about. And then we'll pick maybe 1 or 2 to deep dive in, talk a little more in detail about their backstory, as well as play a couple of their voice actors' audio lines. Some of them are really, really cool, so I think you'll have fun with that. So yeah, Jonas, go ahead and let's tee up the chat. Let's watch them, see who they like the most, and we'll talk about one of them in detail. So tell us about the 5 characters.
I'll give you the elevator pitch on all of them. We'll start with the 2 Romans. Caeso Quinctius Aquilinus is the sort of consummate centurion. He is like the Roman soldier in our story, the one who really, he's passionate, he's dutiful, he really loves his country and has made a whole career out of fighting for it. And is also like a career soldier. He joined when he was very young, and now he's risen to the very top of what a sort of, I guess you would say, non-commissioned officer could get in the Roman legion, which is primus pilus, like the top centurion in charge of a legion, right under the prefect and the legatus. And he's really just a heroic archetype who stands for righteousness and duty and responsibility. His sort of female counterpart as a Roman in the party is Julia Callida, who is not quite as in love with Rome. She never really wanted to be confined by Roman sort of gender roles. She did not want to be this very well-behaved, pretty girl who just get married off and be quiet and spend all the time gossiping and being a socialite. She wanted to, ride horses and practice archery and do outdoorsy things, and that was always a cause of strife in her home, until eventually she was forced to run away through reasons we will not get into here because that's a major spoiler, and she chose to actually run to the Legion and join the Legion pretending to be a man. She was found out relatively quickly, but fortunately the people who found out about her were they took a liking to her and decided to help her out. So that's how she ended up in the Legion, as a sort of scout soldier, loosely affiliated. Then we have our freed slave, Bestia Tabat, who was originally from the classical kingdom of Mauritania, or not the classical area of Mauritania, North Africa. He was sold into slavery at a young age and ended up in Rome, where he was trained to be a gladiator. He has a very sort of simplistic view on life because of his upbringing. He's just been taught action and violence is the solution to most problems. But throughout the game, he develops into a more nuanced character, or rather, he's really always been a more nuanced character. But you realize the layers that he has, and he starts to expose the different sides of his personality, his lust for learning, and his eagerness to actually improve himself and his view of the world. And you can help him with that, and you can also help him by getting him the tutelage of Cineros, the fourth companion, who is this old Greek servus, slaves, like house slave, who's been your tutor, your personal teacher and servant for your entire life. I won't go so much into his backstory because that is also a big spoiler. But he was not always a teacher. He did have a much more interesting past than that, which you can discover during the game. But in our game, he's a quite mild-mannered, fairly peaceful, very philosophically inclined person. That is like the personality he's cultivated for himself, and he will advise you in a teacherly, almost fatherly capacity. And then finally, Deianira, the Amazon warrior, who joins quite late in the game. You have to break her out of a gladiator school. She too has been captured with an eye to making her a gladiator slave, but fairly recently, and hasn't yet gone through her training, and she immediately sees you as her chance to break out of that. Her sister was killed when she was captured as well. She harbors some guilt for that, and her quest is all about getting revenge or forgiveness in terms of the people who did that to her, who killed her sister and enslaved her. So she's quite the character as well.
Excellent. So we have our five. That's all five. So you guys, for the people that are typing in chat and not just listening in the background while they're at work or whatever, you guys should vote or comment on who I hear. Some people wanting to hear about Julia. So I'm gonna go through them again really quick. We have Kaiso, who is the Roman soldier. He has a lot of backstory to him in his history, but he's kind of the quintessential Roman, an honorable Roman. We have Julia, who's a more complex Roman that kind of, in a way, rebelled against Roman society, but she has a lot of interesting characteristics to her. We have Bestia, the gladiator, who actually I remember very much surprised me in just how much personality and how much in the philosophy he got as the game evolved. When I first saw it, I'm like, is this the same Bestia at the beginning? Because in the beginning, he seemed like he just wanted to kill everybody, but that's actually the case. So he's very, very complicated. I thought that was interesting. We have Cineros, who is your the first person that you actually know in the game. You've known him for longer than anybody else, and he's kind of your mentor and tutor that you grew up with. And then we have and I always pronounce her name wrong. Deianira, thank you. I always want to call her Daenerys. Deianira, the Amazon. So I'm looking here. I see. Let's see. Someone was interested in Julia. Is it going to be Julia and Deianira, the two female characters? We got to do a male and a female, right? Can we do both females? Let's see. We could do. Let's start with Julia. I see a vote for Cineros. We'll start with Julia and do a couple of her lines. I actually think her lines are really, really cool in the ones you picked. And we'll expose some of her VO lines. And then we'll give you guys a little more time to vote on one more. I see Cineros and a couple others were asking. So maybe Cineros. I see two people for Cineros, maybe. So we'll start with Julia. So I think
Cineros is an awesome voice, so I'm for it.
Yeah, let's go play like 3 or 4 of the Julia lines. We'll be quiet so you guys can listen to them. They're super cool.
Maybe I don't want to be helped. My life's in this shitty place because of all the people who were trying to help me. I really am sorry I had to lie to you all. If you can find it in your hearts to forgive me, I will be honest with you from now on. Smart people can be really good at acting dumb. I'm not sure. Something else is going on here. I wouldn't count on anything. Those Vitellius bastards are slippery. Expect the unexpected.
Excellent. There we go. We have 4 or 5 lines. I actually, hopefully you guys were able to hear that okay clearly. If not, let us know and we'll tune it and try again. But they hopefully came through just fine on the stream. We had a lot of, I think the voice actress who did Julia did a fantastic, killer job. Like, I really enjoyed listening to those audio files as they were coming in.
She was really hard to cast, but I was super happy with the actress we ended up with, Rosie. She did a fantastic job on Julia, and it's a very difficult character because you don't want her to just be you don't want to just be this like pouty, angry character throughout. Like there's a lot of nuance to her. She has a lot of internal strife as well about her place in the world. So yeah, it all really came through. And I hope that these samples also help to illustrate like the role she plays in your party as the sort of sneaky spy kind of character. Like that's how she ended up being used by her superiors in the Legion. Like they saw the potential in her deceptive sort of talent. And she's always the first one to spot deception and predict an ambush whenever you're about to walk into something.
Yeah, I find that when we were casting the voice actress and trying to figure out what kind of tone we wanted for her, it was tricky because the writing when you're first seeing it, and Julia's on this cast picture here on the left, or my left right now on the screen. The writing almost makes her seem weak at times, but she's not. It's all how it's read, and it was about finding someone that could interpret those lines as a strength of character that Julia actually has. So she's someone who really took her own life and owned it and went and made decisions to go craft the future that she's living. She's not a weak character, but she's empathetic and complex still, and that emotion still need to come out. And so you have this person who understands deception because she deceives and is still strong and is able to have conviction about those decisions, but is also not blind to the impact of them. There's so many layers to her. I don't know. She's my personal favorite when it comes to just how complex and interesting she is as far as the companions are concerned.
Yeah, I think she also ended up being our favorite. We ended up putting her in every scene, and she has quite a lot of lines of dialogue because of it. So we definitely fell in love with that character while writing her as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now the other character that people were talking about, maybe we can do a little bit. And it's hard because I like all of them for different reasons, but I think Cineros is also a very complex character. We can't really talk too much about his backstory because I feel like saying anything about it kind of ruins it a little bit. Like it's part of the discovery.
I guess we can say there's definitely more to him than meets the eye. He has a dark past, and you'll learn about it.
I know when you guys were writing all of the companions, so each of the characters, each of the core companions, has their own set of kind of I don't want to call them side quests. It's really like there's quests that can allow you to discover more about them independently of the main story arc that happen across the entire game. It's not like just one quest in one area. A lot of them have multiple steps to them, and they really do unveil a lot about the character's history as well as give you an opportunity to potentially influence how that future continues from here. Like it's a very much moment in times and impacts, which is really, really compelling because all 5 of them are extremely unique and very different and have a lot of complexity to them. When I saw Cineros' one, I was like, what? Like it I had no idea that's where he was. It completely blew me away. It was not, and I mean, I've been on the project since the beginning. I had no idea that was the vision for his character. It was very, very compelling. So maybe we can play a couple of his VO lines too before we move on and bring on here.
I love his voice.
Yeah. Okay, we'll play a little bit of Cineros.
Does this hurt? Good, that means you're fine. I'm glad you see it this way. I am sympathetic to Zenobia's cause, but in my opinion, political assassination is quite far beneath people of your station and importance. More than happy. Although it was nice to be back in my homeland once again, I find it quite impossible to not miss Rome. The meanings of words are rarely set in stone. Perhaps 1,000 years from now, people will use different adjectives. But today, these are the words we use. Dominus was killed with a small stabbing dagger. Judging from the wounds, I can tell the particular shape the blade had.
Awesome. Yeah, his voice is amazing. So much character to it.
That was a last-minute recast as well. Like we decided to cast a little bit against what you would expect from the character because we originally were looking at people with a bit more of an old man voice, and then the studio were like, "Well, have you considered this guy?" It was like, "Wow, that's amazing! That's an amazing and weird choice. We have to pick it." It's not the kind of voice you expect for the character at all, but you'll realize why we picked it when you go through his quest because it fits him perfectly.
Yeah, it really does. And Marco, Just Team, to answer your question, yes, you meet a ton of historical characters in the game. You get to, and we're talking about Cineros here a little bit, which is the non-historical. It's a fictional character we created for the story, but he's a philosopher, and there's a lot of elements of his personality that come out in relating to both your and his interactions with historical characters, because he kind of pulls from the philosophy of Rome as well as the philosophy of his, his backstory and his upbringing as kind of raising you in these tenets of Roman philosophy. And so you have these moments where you're debating. I mean, at one point, we've talked about this before. It's like you can, meet and debate philosophy with the famous Cato and Cicero about a number of different things. And there's different ways that plays out throughout the entire journey of the game. And to be honest, some of the things that Scenarios kind of talks you through as the game goes on can help influence, I guess, how you react to those conversations. I mean, there is to a certain degree, I feel like we almost help the player understand these things so that they can make decisions based on what kind of character they're trying to play as the hero.
One of the things I really like about Sinros is because he's a slave and he's your slave, he can go anywhere you can go. Like, he can just come with you. So there's a lot of scenes where he's really the only person from your companion team who's around, because he just accompanied you as your slave. So he is able to add his perspective on these more political or social scenes. And he too sort of ends up developing a relationship to some of these important characters. Like, in the end of the game, Cato and Cicero know of Cicero and respect him as much as they respect you. So and that makes him a particularly interesting character, I think, in the context of the game.
So I know everyone wants to see Fasih, and Fasih is coming on right now to talk about the choices thing, but people are begging us on chat to show them a little clip of the Amazonian. They want to hear the Amazonian's voice. So maybe we can play a little bit of Daenerys here before we bounce out and bring Fasih on for the choices section. So Vornwer Olcorn, you ask pretty please.
I have never seen anything like it. And there are so many things to buy, so many different people. I love that. But there is a strange way people talk to me. Not because I'm foreign, I think, but because I am woman. That is not too different from home, it seems. People here, Berbers, they live in tribes and move around a lot. If they are like my people, do not make mistake of treating them as one. No one in tribe will speak for everyone. Always there is dissent. I will show you all how Scythian fights!
Yeah, I wanted to throw in a little curveball there.
Yeah.
We're showing that back at the end.
Yeah. We're showing all the dramatic lines, but definitely when they're in combat or when things are tense, it's the I always, if you've ever seen a voice acting session before, when they have to do combat yells or really angry stuff, man, those guys' voices gets blown out real fast. It's very aggressive. Death sounds of the
like 2 meters away from the microphone, just shouting at the booth.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, there's a little taste of 3 of the characters, and so their voices and stories and whatnot. Hopefully that's piqued your interest a little bit. We will be continuing to show more of this stuff off. Jonas, we're going to bid you adieu for a moment, and we're going to bring on our lovely guest, Fasih. So thank you very much. We'll see you a little bit in the end.
I will be back.
Yes. And let's see, I think we're going to have Fasih show up. Is he there? Fasih, you there? I think you're there.
I'm here.
Hey,
hi,
how
Brad.
are you?
I'm okay. I'm chilling. It's a nice afternoon, I think, because it's Denmark. You never know. It's always bright these days outside.
Yes.
How's it going?
It seems like you have a couple fans in chat. There was a little bit of a controversy, some drama, thinking that you were typing about yourself in chat for a second, which obviously you aren't. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can type about myself if you want.
I'm personally a Fasih fan, so I understand. We've had lots of fun hanging out. I miss coming out to Denmark. Hopefully soon I can get back to your beautiful country and we can go out for a drink and spend time together again. It's been too long for sure.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual. I'm a Brad fan myself.
Oh, thank you. So for everyone who doesn't know you, even though you seem to be already internet famous, maybe you can give a little bit of information about yourself and your role in the project.
Right, I'm Fasih Sayin. I'm the lead narrative designer of Expeditions Rome. I've been with the company for more than 2.5 years, I guess. And what I'm doing on Rome is I'm responsible for the story and the story-related mechanics of the game. like for the structure and everything, essentially. Yeah, that's what I do. So if the story sucks, you can blame me. I
Something
hope
that
it doesn't.
I hope it's not embarrassing, but I just find it fascinating. So you have a PhD, is that correct?
Yes, I have a PhD. I have a PhD technically in cinema, in narratology, which is like a science of storytelling, so to speak. Like we do research on the structures of stories, what makes stories work, etc. And I basically took 5 different video games and made 100 people each play them from the beginning to the end and recorded their decisions. And that's not just story decisions, but also like how they level up their characters, which weapons they take, etc. All of the choices, and try to find correlations between those and figure out how these things work and how people feel about it. It sounded like a great idea. In hindsight, it was it was labor intensive. Let's put it that way. It took a lot of time.
Yeah, I think that I know that one of the games that we've talked about a lot and that you studied as part of that thesis was Mass Effect, and I find that there are a number of games that tackle the challenge of dramatic branching storylines and player driven choices having consequences. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think Mass Effect is one of the best at that. And it is for those people out there that have a little bit of interest in game development, is probably one of the hardest development challenges to face, because you're basically creating almost like infinite branches the more choices you make as the game progresses and all these choices start filtering out. It's very hard. I think it's really freaking cool that you studied this as part of your PhD thesis, and now we're on this team helping us make this game. It's
yes.
It's
Somehow I managed to con my teachers into believing that I'm doing something about movies, but meanwhile I was studying video games. So, and it worked out.
Maybe Fasih has a little Julia in him. I don't know. Sounds like a little bit of a Julia move there.
Maybe. Yeah.
It is a daunting task, and how do we tackle this in Rome? Like, how do you tackle the challenge of having such dynamic choices and consequences in a game of this size, a 40 plus 50-hour epic RPG?
Yeah, it's always difficult. Like you say, like whenever you kind of branch the story, it just grows exponentially. It's very difficult to manage that kind of thing. And a method of doing this is like letting it grow organically, which is a fancy thing to say, but I think a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking of like a video game story in terms of events. An event follows another event, and another event follows, and just the characters are just around. And I don't like that kind of approach. And I think Jonas and we both love characters. So what we basically did for Rome is like first figuring out where the story ends. We pretty much knew the goal, like basically the X that marks the spot, and then we worked on the characters. Like you said, there's a reason why they are like 3-dimensional characters. They all have their own motivations and their own methods of dealing with the problems they face. And then once you start writing these characters, it sounds like almost like a crazy thing to say, but they start talking to you. Like they almost start telling you what else they could have done at that point. And those are your points to brunch, and you start thinking about what else your character can say, and when you say that, what would Julia do there? And it organically leads to a completely different branch, which means you have to do it. So it's interestingly, we worked backwards essentially. In the very beginning, we only had the spine of the story. Then we started detailing it, and we ended up with a huge collection of interesting choices. And I hope people will like it. It was fun. What difficult?
Yeah, I've been very I feel very privileged to get the chance to have worked so close with you guys over the last couple of years on this, and watching this process in real time, the conversations, the brainstorming, the arguments a couple times here and there, but like all of this debate about who these characters are and their role and how the story evolves. And I mean, it's a fascinating thing. I think Jonas and I were talking about this a number of weeks ago, where we were talking about how all these branches came to be. I want to say it was on stream, but maybe it was not. It could have been just in a meeting. And it was this whole idea of like, well, we would go and like, you'd have one decision and you'd realize that this character would probably remember that in this point in time. So we're gonna go add that there, and then this point in time and add that there. And the next thing you know, the spider web just from one choice ends up just, like you said, creating organically, because the characters kind of tell you what they would remember based on their personality types almost. Like Julia may not have liked that, and she's not gonna let you forget about it. And she's gonna tell you in like 3 years when it comes up again. And like these, I don't know, it's incredible. It's one of those things where everyone's initial thought when they hear about choices and consequences always jumps to, oh, am I going to fight this guy or this guy? Or is this person going to die or is this person going to die? Or am I going to romance this person or that person? I mean, of course that's there, but I find it way more compelling, even those little sprinklings of memories. Like someone just remembering what you did and mentioning it, even though it may not have a direct impact on the story, it brings the role that you're playing. I mean, not to make that too much of a, I mean, it's true though. It brings that role that you're playing come to life.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most important things when you're writing this kind of story is the feeling of agency. And we sometimes forget about this, like focus on change. Like you do things and things change in the story, but that's not enough. As a player, you should always feel like you are personally doing these things. Like there should be a connection between your actions and the consequences thereof. And it's a difficult balancing act, because there are long-term consequences and short-term consequences.
Absolutely.
Like you can do something at the beginning of the game and it could have long-lasting consequences. You wouldn't even realize it quickly, and like 2 chapters later you figure out like, I did that back then and now this happened. And that's fine as long as you have that feeling, this happened because of me. But you can't do a lot of those, because that would also feel like railroading you. Like you make a decision at the beginning of the story and now you actually don't have any decisions, and you also didn't know what consequences would that decision entail. So we also have short-term consequences and short-term choices. And of those most important ones, I think what I liked when I played Viking, Expeditions Viking, my favorite thing about that story was you could change your mind about the major way the story played out. Like you could completely change faction. Rome works in a different way, but there is, I don't want to say anything about it, but because, you know, spoilers, nobody likes spoilers. But there's a major choice somewhere in the game which kind of changes entirely how the rest of the game plays out. But it doesn't come out of nowhere. Like we foreshadow it multiple times, and when that choice is there, like it's actually a quiet scene where you can talk to everyone and get their opinions about it. And we try to tell the player, hey, this is a really important choice and this will change a lot of things.
Yeah, it's something that you know, I know I'm biased because I'm on the project. I mean, I've been in the industry for a while, and I mean, I fanboy about this game. I mean, the excitement, and I mean, I see Jonas smirking in the corner because sometimes I feel like I embarrass these guys a little bit too much. But it's like there are some games that sometimes you play where you get this sense of adventure and this sense of excitement on you exploring a world and seeing how that world unfolds in front of you and feeling organic in how that happens. And I mean, I personally really feel like that Rome captures that. And part of it is, and I remember we talked about this, this may have actually been before you joined the project, Fasih. This is back like in the very beginning, when Jonas and I first met. And I think it was actually at dinner, and we were debating about different games that have these different kinds of challenges, because one of the biggest problems that I have, and this is not meant as a knock to anybody, it's a hard problem to solve. One of the biggest problems that I have in these games is, or games like this, is that fear of making the wrong choice.
Right.
Like, oh, if I make this choice, it's going to, and you end up doing that whole wiki search where you're like, okay, let me go look at this line on the wiki and see all the different branches and you try to optimize your way through the game, because as gamers and especially as RPG players, you're optimizing your characters and your skills and everything. Is why would you not optimize the story? I want the best story. And we talked about this quite a bit, I think for a couple hours that night over dinner, where it's like, how do we with Rome at the very beginning tackle that so that the player, I mean, we can't completely avoid it. Some players are going to want to have the story they want to experience, but how do we help minimize that as much as possible so you feel like every choice is a good choice? They not be like the most moralistically good choice, but they all are a good choice, and they have a rich experience that falls out from them. And I feel like I mean, obviously, I can't wait to see what hopefully our growing base of fans think as we share more and you play the game in a while. But hopefully. I feel like we're really hitting that mark. It's super exciting.
I mean, first of all, like I really want to say, and this is not just me saying it, when you're working on a story-intensive game, in my experience, working with a producer can sometimes be really difficult, because like you can butt heads and then producers usually you feel like you're working against, like you're fighting for things, and that was never the case with you. Like so that was lucky for us. Like your criticism was always constructive. So I really enjoyed those conversations where Jonas, you and I were talking about the story, and you were voicing your concerns, and that really helped us. So that was really good. That was lucky for us. Like it's one of the factors that made the story hopefully as good as it is.
Is that how it feels? But thank you. That's very. You guys.
It is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, when it comes to the right choice, it's just like you said, it's not something you can prevent. Like some players just want to win, even if it's a story, they want to win the story, and it's like win.
Yeah.
And there's another thing, like we tried with the choices. So our choices are not exactly categorized in terms of right choice and wrong choice. We tried not to have things like, oh, there's a cat on the tree. Would you like to save the cat or burn the tree along with the cat? That's not really a choice. This is like, we don't have choices like that. Our choices are generally equally balanced, or we try to do that. What choice you take depends on what kind of character you want to be, and it's not right or wrong. The other thing we tried to avoid was, in a way, judging the player based on their choices and morals. Like a lot of games do that. Like they give you different points based on that, reward when you play a good character, or punish you when you play an evil character. And that's fine, but like I don't think that's something. Neither I nor Jonas wanted to do that. Like we instead, like I feel like, who am I to tell you how to behave, or like who am I to say my morals are superior than yours? Like educating the audience like this feels a little bit arrogant. But the best we could do as writers here is, it's probably asking questions, like asking difficult questions, and you make the decisions, and the morals of those decisions, those are for you to decide. The victory for us in this would be like if we make you think about the consequences. That's enough for us.
So you're absolutely right, and I think this is one of the challenges that I always have when I hang out with Fasih and Jonas and we talk, is that we can talk about this stuff literally for hours, and we definitely have. So we have a Q&A section I want to get to, and we have also this awesome Twitter poll that we did that I want to talk about. But I know we captured some cool footage, and I'd love to show some new footage. So basically I asked, or I kind of preloaded this a little bit, because these shows aren't all just random. Like sometimes they are a little bit scripted, as much as we try to make them. So I asked Fasih before the show to pick an example that didn't spoil anything, but was a quest that he thought was a really good demonstration, or one of his demonstration of choices that he thought. So I think producer Alex is going to play some videos of that quest, and maybe we can do this in like 3 minutes. We don't have to do the whole thing, but maybe you can talk us through a little bit about this quest example that you selected for the show.
Right.
One is my
So
subordinate.
I think
You'd better
what
remember
demonstrates that kind of choice
Charmian.
consequence thing really nicely, and it's one of my favorite quests, is a quest we call Diplomatic Distractions, which takes place
You
in
disrespect
Egypt,
me at your
kind
own
of
risk.
halfway through the game, maybe. And the premise of this quest, without revealing too much about the plot, is there's something you need, some kind of MacGuffin, which is like behind the enemy
Roman
line
delegation has arrived.
and the
Inform
palace
the
of
cooks.
the pharaoh. And so you have to go there and retrieve that thing, and
Welcome
it's
to
really
Alexandria,
important for
honored
you.
Romans. May
So the
Ra's
setup
light
is
shine upon
you're
you.
collaborating with Cleopatra at the time, and the pharaoh is Cleopatra's husband. She basically sets up a kind of political meeting with you and the pharaoh. And the setup is you're going to the palace. You basically you want to have a conversation with the pharaoh, keeping him busy, while the other companions are sneaking around the palace trying to get the thing you're trying to get. So this
You
quest is
can't curse me.
really, I think, probably
Just
the most
go
memorable
home.
quest
The pharaoh
for
is
me
expecting important guests.
in terms of development, because it was such a pain to implement it, and Jonas was really angry at me because of the complexity of the
We are
quest.
in
Like,
Egypt. It is my
Now, so everyone's
land.
seeing his
As long as we are
smirk.
here, everyone
yeah,
is my
because
subordinate.
basically
You'd better
it's his
remember
fault
that.
though. I mean, he said like,
Charmian.
why don't we have? It's your fault. I mean, you can't see Jonas right now, but like, they can see
you.
Jonas.
We're doing
You
the 3-camera
disrespect me
thing right
at
now, so
your
they can
own
see him. And
They can see his
can
reaction.
talk.
Like, it's
yeah.
totally your fault, Jonas, because like it's a main quest thing, and you said, why don't we do a quest without any combat? And then we decided, you know, if it doesn't have any combat, it should have really interesting conversation like mechanics and
Welcome
other
to
stuff.
Alexandria,
So we
honored
ended up
Romans. May Ra's
basically
light
putting
shine upon you.
a mini adventure game, like a point-and-click adventure game, into our RPG. So that's interesting in itself. But for me, like the interesting setup there is multiple characters, like different sets of characters
You're
are in
lucky the
different
pharaoh
rooms.
didn't have you
So
executed.
you're there with the
idiot
pharaoh,
girl.
potentially
You
with
want me to call
Cineros.
down a curseable busty
Really
upon you?
gets
Because I've just
clumsy,
about had it
but
with you
maybe
people.
not. It depends on
You can't curse me.
You have to keep
Try
them
me.
busy.
You'll see.
Meanwhile,
Just go home. The pharaoh is expecting
Cleopatra
important
is really
guests.
antagonistic towards the ex-husband, and you're kind of like trapped in the middle. Like if you side with Cleopatra, the pharaoh gets really angry, and the consequences could be terrible. So you want to prevent that, but if you contradict Cleopatra, Cleopatra gets angry, and she's like your ally. So you're trying to keep that balance in this really awkward situation, and meanwhile trying to keep their attention there, while your companions are outside trying to do whatever they're trying to do. And whatever they're trying to do is, first you have to invent a reason for them to go outside. Then your enemies send their people with them to like keep tabs on them. So you have to ditch them, inventing a reason, and that determines which of the two characters you are running around with in the palace, and that could be any set of any two characters. So and
I'm gonna jump in real quickly. You have any questions real quick, but I'm Jonas, was this quest as much of a pain in the ass as Fasih's kind of alluding to it being?
It was way worse because it can't necessarily be two characters. It could even be three of them. There's so many
Yes.
combinations. And then there's each character has their own different way of solving this quest with like multiple different little point and click style puzzles or much more direct solutions. And yeah, I think it took me like 2 weeks of almost like full-time crunch just to implement. It was the worst. But it's a great quest.
I mean, it's like the worst thing is not that. I think the worst thing is you can select which character you want to use, but then you can change it.
That's
And
true.
so that's I think that's also one of those scenes where you play where you get the option to play as other characters.
Mhm.
Like
I love Metachow says, "What if we do that follower thing from KOTOR, but just so much more complicated?"
That's exactly how it was, yeah.
that's
You
exactly how
control
it
your
was.
companions, yeah.
And the added complexity there is the dramatic complexity, because we constantly cut between that scene and the scene in the throne room. So there's also that we skip time, something happens there, and maybe some noise happens, and they hear it in the throne room, and you have to invent an excuse for that.
So I'm gonna cut this now, as we do have to go through a little bit of the Q&A, but hopefully everyone's this sounds like a lot of fun quests. I think everyone's gonna have a lot of fun getting there. You have to make sure we'll have once the game releases, we'll come back to this and see what chat's opinions are. So everyone needs to clip this VOD and remember this moment of debate and smiles, and then we'll revisit this whole thing with the group back after everyone's had a chance to play it, and we can talk about it in more detail. So we might as well leave all three of us on here for this next section. We'll go through some questions. The first thing I want to start off with, though, we have an awesome. If you guys aren't following us on Twitter, I encourage you to. We're going to start doing some really cool things there, posting Rome facts, doing some other cool, fun polls. We may do some clips from the videos. We're going to start becoming way more active on Twitter here in the next following numbers of weeks. So please go and follow us there. We also have our community site, community.expeditionsseries.com. That's where all the dev diaries are posted. So we'd love for you to go in there. Our forums are still just getting started. We don't have a lot of activity yet because everyone seems to be on Discord. But if you go in and chat there, I promise you the guys will be responding. I'm always there. There's actually one really cool thread that Holmes started about weapons. So maybe some people that like medieval or Roman weapons or whatever can go post some different pictures there. I know he's a big fanboy of that. But for the Twitter question, so I'm going to bring up, or if my friendly producer friend Alex in the background can bring up the vote. We had a vote on Twitter talking about different story consequences. And I'm going to go ahead and just read the text, if I can pull it up really quick so I can get the count. So the question on Twitter was, why is Twitter being weird for me? There it is. So it's like a hypothetical question. It's like, as your victory draws near, you'll be faced with a momentous choice, right? And the choice is either secure evidence you need to take your rivals to trial before the Senate. So basically go get evidence about your rivals and take them to court, or strike a decisive blow in the war effort that will save the lives of many Roman legionary, but then you lose the opportunity to get that evidence. And we had about 200 plus people that responded, so it's awesome to see for one of our first polls. And it seems like most people want to be the moralistic Roman to a certain degree. Like they want to protect their soldiers. Some people went after the evidence, some people went after but most people wanted to save Roman lives. Where do you guys fall on this spectrum? We'll start with you, Jonas. Where do you fall?
I like the one that won as well. I think that's it giving up your own selfish kind of goals, even though it does set you back in sort of your own personal plot. I think it feels good. It feels good to be that sort of self-sacrificing character. Obviously, we've made sure that both paths are equally rewarded and both feel good, but that would be the one that I go with.
What about you, Fasih? Quick answer. What do you think? Secure evidence or save Roman?
I think I would do the same thing. Like I would protect my own soldiers, but like it's difficult because like when you see it on Twitter, it looks like a simple choice, and in the game it will be different. I guarantee it to you. It will be in its context, it's a difficult choice. So yeah. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
I thought about this a little bit yesterday as I was watching the votes come in, and I have a hard time with this decision because it's that whole for the greater good kind of thing. It's like do you sacrifice a few lives of people who are soldiers that are willing to sacrifice themselves for the Republic to save the Republic, or do you save those people and potentially risk the entire Republic? Right? Like there's a much more meta question there about. It's like when you send soldiers to in this game, right? Like when you're going to war for a purpose for Rome, and they're willing to put their lives on the line for Rome. That's what they're there for. They believe in it, and they believe in your choices to help do the best for Rome they can. So in this scenario, it's like, well, if I don't secure this evidence, I may never be able to bring this person to trial, and if that doesn't happen, the whole Republic or whatever situation could cause even more death and destruction from civilians, from innocent people. So it's a complex choice. I like the complexities of that. I don't think it's as easy as just save Roman lives or get some evidence. There's a lot more layers there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's not like the saving lives, as you said, is not technically. We cannot say it's the morally correct choice because of just what you said. Like, it's technically not you doing things legally. Like, you're ignoring this huge thing. Yeah, I don't know, and that's good. Like,
That's life, right? Life is usually full of
yeah.
those. I want to grab. I know we have a few minutes left. Hopefully, it's okay that we go a few minutes over. I want to grab at least one question from the forum. So we do finally have our first forum question that came in today, which is great for the Dev Diary. So Knight of Phoenix, I'm not sure if you're on the stream. If not, hopefully you watch the VOD and get the answer to your question. He posted the Dev Diary about an hour or so ago and had two questions. I'm going to read them and then we'll maybe jump into them real quick. It shouldn't take us too long. So the first one is about Lurko. So it says, is this Vitellius Lurko an optimate or a popularis? Not that the civil war in Rome was primarily driven by ideology, but it would be interesting if we could paint our rivalry with Lurko on the basis of ideology. So he has a couple other subtext there, but basically he's wanting to know what political spectrum this person falls under.
Yeah.
You want to take this one?
Yeah, sure.
Without giving away too much.
No, I don't think we would have given too much. It is. So there are two kinds of conflict in Rome, in Expeditions Rome. One of those is like the your
answer. We got to go to the second part of the question too.
Okay, like yes, there's a political side to it, but you have your personal problems with him too. And if we definitely want to pick a side, I would say Lurko is more on the popularis side, while your family is from the optimates, but it is up to you to decide what you are. Like, you can totally, that's why I say it's two different kinds of conflicts. Like, your personal conflict is as is, but politically you can actually side with Lurko if you want. Like,
I think this kind of dovetails. Oh, go ahead, Jonas. Go ahead.
No, like in real history, both Pompey and Caesar were at certain times aligned with the popularis, but they were also against each other. Then they were with each other, then they were against each other. So it's interesting how the political reality doesn't necessarily align with the personal conflicts, and that's how it is in Expeditions Rome as well.
And that actually dovetails directly to the second question because I think you answered it. What Knights of Phoenix also asks is, am I right in speculating that the rivalry between us and Lurko will act as a stand-in for the clash between Caesar and Pompey? Or we participate in the conflict between Caesar versus Pompey and interact with him as an NPC? I don't think we're going to say either of those things directly, but I think there are corollaries to the conflict between us and Lurko to other conflicts of big powers in Roman history. Some of that is Caesar and Pompey. Some of it's the other. I mean, even like with I see a little bit of like the Caeso and or like Cato and Cicero conflict even coming up sometimes in the way you're debating about certain things, like what is the right way for the Republic to go forward. You see a lot of those historical conflicts being brought into the dynamic layers of your character and Lurko's character.
Yeah, it's more of an aggregate for multiple different kinds of people. Like it reflects specific kinds of relationships that existed between different people back then, but it's not any particular two people that we modeled it too closely on.
Yeah.
It would also be a little bit deceptive to kind of think of this strictly in terms of historical events and characters, like, because technically history kind of unfolds differently in our game. So we don't strictly, as Jonas said at the beginning of the stream, we don't strictly follow the historical events like to the letter. Your characters, it seems like there's some confusion about that. Your character is not Caesar. Your character doesn't replace Caesar. Caesar actually exists in the game, but things just develop differently. So that's all I can say without, spoiling it too much.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys had a great time on the stream.
Yeah, definitely. Always
usual.
fun to talk about the story.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun having both of you guys on here. Hopefully everyone in the audience is enjoying the stream. As I mentioned before, please join community.expeditionsseries.com so you can read the dev diaries and see all of our other content coming out. We are having another stream in roughly 2+ weeks. We're going to have August join us. He's our art director, and he's going to be showing off. We've seen all this pretty art. I mean, behind me, behind these two gentlemen, we have a lot of really awesome art in the game. I think the game actually looks gorgeous, in my opinion. And August is going to come on, and we'll share some exclusive looks. First looks at some visuals. We'll probably have a few concept art things to show. I'm not sure for this stream, but you definitely may want to tune in. We may be able to show some development time lapse videos. I know the studio has recorded some of that, so we may have some cool like picture-in-picture time lapses of seeing some content actually created live on the stream, which would be really, really compelling. So we're gonna have some of those for sure on these series, but maybe we can grab one for the next one coming up. So you're gonna want to tune in for that and not miss it. All the dates of all this stuff is on our community hub as well. There's a calendar there, so you can make sure to save that, and it should be a lot of fun. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Cheers.